The cost of living is rising. Every motorist knows it when filling up. And every shopper knows their basket is getting more expensive. And what the Reserve Bank does next could add to those costs.
Australian households will certainly feel the adverse consequences of higher petrol prices and higher food prices, as their counterparts in other advanced economies will do, and there's not a lot that they can do in the short term to mitigate the impact of those price movements on their standards of living.
For 2 years, the economy has been buffeted by a series of crises. Pandemic-weary consumers are now facing the impact of catastrophic floods, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine is roiling global markets. Shoppers are dealing with prices rising much faster than the Reserve Bank predicted. Now the RBA is caught between a rock and a hard place. When to raise interest rates and by how much. One of the biggest economic pains is in the hip pocket nerve. Oil may have come back to $100 a barrel this week, but energy prices have been on a wild ride recently, with the biggest supply shock since the Yom Kippur War in 1973.
3 out of 4 stations were closed. 99 out of 100 will be closed tomorrow.
What central banks don't want to see is a repeat of images like these. The oil shocks of the 1970s ricocheted around the world, and it took 15 years to build a new economic order and get inflation back under control. But economists here say no matter how bad it looks now, it's not a repeat of that chaotic decade.
The likelihood that Australian businesses or Australian workers are going to find themselves in an inflationary spiral in the way that we did in the 70s and 80s is, I think, fairly low.
Australia's in a different position, though, because we export many of the commodities whose prices are rising. This means that our terms of trade will rise over the months ahead, which will provide a boost to our national income.
The RBA governor will be keenly watching the US Federal Reserve, which is expected to deliver a small interest rate increase tomorrow. But it will be economic events that will determine if and when the RBA pulls the trigger.